The series begins with the child Harry, who lives with his father, mother and little brother, and Harry remains obsessed with magicians' shows and watches them all the time, until one day one of the performers calls him and asks him to take with him the box that his help is in, and Harry throws out part of the box, which suddenly gets divided nascene. The assistant's body blooms, as if her head is in one place and her legs are in another place, and then the magician asks Harry to return the box to its place, and it remains as if the girl's body has become part of another one. One day, he begins to train himself for performances, and he is able to make moves that are much older than his age, such as putting nails in his trumpet, and then eggs appear in their place, and people are dazzled, and Harry begins to win a lot of money, and every day he returns home to his mother, and he is happy, and she has all the money he earned. Suddenly, he knocks on the door and Harry opens and finds that they are children who want sweets. But the father kicks them out and suddenly knocks on the door again. So the father rises to upset the children again. However, he is surprised by his friends, who tell him that he has a lot left in the city and that he has not yet learned the English language. And that's why they can't make him sit any more than that. And between the collapse of the father, and he has to travel with his family to another city. After a while, the father dies and Harry grows up. He performs magic shows with his brothers in many places. And Harry always reads about the wizard, Azim Hoodie. He calls himself the magician Houdini, and he is waiting for him to remain the determined magician, and as the days pass, he meets Harry, the girl of his dreams, who is staying in a dance show from the theater shows, and Harry admires her very much, and he goes out with him until he decides that he proposes to her, and she agrees, so Harry decides that he separates from his brother and performs shows with his wife under the name Al Houdini, and she will be his assistant in the performances, and after a while he thinks about how he can renew himself and reads about Sahar that they can untie any kind of chains. So he decides that he will try and he can untie chain after chain until he becomes a professional in it, and he begins to make offers with all kinds of hooks, chains, locks, and whatever is in his entire body. But then he thinks smarter and decides to imprison himself in the most aggravated prisons, and whoever tries to escape from it in order to win a larger audience, and really makes the press witness intuition from its inception, and he agrees with the warden that he will imprison him for a sum of money. And it shows him that he hits him in the stomach, and the sheriff agrees that he takes money, and he hits Harry in the stomach, and lock him up in jail, but in exchange for it coming out before midnight, Harry agrees and enters the cell. His wife bids him farewell, kisses him, and walks, after which the warden asks him to open his bed to make sure that he does not have any tool that he can use to open the chains in the prison door. With his hand, Harry takes the nail with which the handcuffs are opened, and he is able to get out of prison, locks the door behind him, and the warden returns at the appointed time, with the press, and discovers Harry's disappearance, and people are dazzled by him, and the shows are arrogant. The one who proposes to Harry and starts his secret. One day, he enters a shop that sells handcuffs and chains to offer something new to the public, and he sees the owner of the shop from afar while he is trying to impress him, and he makes the roses in front of him disappear and appear in the form of an apple. Harry notices his talent, and he asks him if he can hide the whole thing in it. So the owner of the place tells him, and his name is Jim, he will think of a solution. Then he showed different types of nails that he designed himself, and whoever can cut anything through it or open anything. And Harry is fascinated by the obsession of the owner of the place with the tools of the magician, and he asks him to show him more things, and he decides to cooperate with him in completely new and different shows for the audience and to appoint him as the person responsible for new ideas for the shows. Because of Jim, more offers come to Harry, and he can buy a big mansion for his mother, who always supported him, and get her servants to help her. And one day Jim surprises Harry with a box called the Bachelor's Box, which is a box full of water, and in which Harry is supposed to be imprisoned, while he is tied to chains, and he must undo them before he leaves, as if he was defying death. Harry asks Jim to give it a try, and really Benzel Harry box. But suddenly he makes a buzz and asks them to get him out quickly. But the lid of the box gets stuck and they can't lift it. Tess asks Jim to break the buzzer,
and Jim kept trying to break it as hard as he could until a cat came
out of it, and he tells them that he will try it again. And Harry rehearses it until he
presents the show to the audience, and he asks them to lock themselves up so they know
the maximum time they can reach. Indeed, the audience locks itself up at the time when he takes off his clothes to go down to the water box. And it exceeds more from 2 minutes, and the audience fears. The team demands that they open the box quickly before he dies. Jim the curtain, and suddenly Harry blooms in front of them, and he is wearing different clothes, as if he was not in the box, and the audience is dazzled by him, and Harry is known as the great magician, Houdini. In order to make sure of his real job, and the head of intelligence will see that magic is just a cover for Al-Hari, and in London, Al-Hari is walking in the streets, and suddenly he meets a person named Shelton, who asks him to be a spy for Britain, and tells him that he is the one who opens his mouth and eyes wherever he goes. This is because they are preparing for a world war, in which America will fight alongside Britain against Germany and Russia. And Mr. Chilton's hand to Harry. New passport, it indicates that he is of American origin. This is why no one ever doubts it, because of Harry's wide fame.
And whoever remains in the whole world is asked by the heads of the great powers
for their special offers, and he attends the first show of the German Kaiser. And whoever stays in his own hall. And Harry makes more than one offer. But Kaiser isn't so interested that he won't even look at Harry with binoculars. Harry draws his attention with a stronger and greater offer so that he can get close to him. We go back in time to Harry's childhood, after his father's death, and who was for him a source of fear in his life.
Because of his harsh treatment, and because of Harry's love of magic, he decides to practice with one of the famous magicians, and whoever keeps treating him very harshly. But Harry has to put up with it in order to learn more until one day he keeps reading the great magician's book, and who is talking about one of the biggest magic tricks, which is the trick of catching the bullet. He asks the magician to teach him this move, but the magician gets mad at him and tells him that he will not hear him say this trick again. Suddenly, he collapses crying while talking about the same trick he did with his son, but he died due to a gun error. And the magic is complete, crying. Suddenly, Harry yells at him, and he says he's a liar.
Because he read the same story in Hoody's magic book, and he snatched it from him. The magician wipes away his tears and speaks normally, and he tells Harry that he is really a liar, and his magician is also a liar, because all magic is just a fact based on a lie, and the best magicians are the best liars.
For this reason, he must master the art of liquefaction and lying methods. Harry thinks of the words of magic, shocked that his life's dream is based on lies and deceit.
He decides to burn the book and stay away from magic completely, but because of his love for it, he decides to go back to it again and forget his principles. And we return to the theater, in which the Caesar remains present, and Harry asks him to send him his best shooters. So I sold Caesar the army commander, and Harry tests his abilities, and let him launch in a specific place, and then Jim throws the weapon in front of them, and he shows them the bullet and the indoctrination method to make sure that they are not lying. And with my hands, see, rifle for the commander of the army, who asks him Harry to start again. But suddenly he stops at the place of the target, so everyone is shocked and very afraid, and the Caesar focuses for the first time and looks from the binoculars, and the army commander remains very afraid, but the Caesar is in my hands to order him to hit the target. The army commander hits Harry, and after everyone is spinning and terrified, a living cat appears in front of them and takes out the bullet from his body. And we are dazzled. Caesar and rises from his place to roof him, and no one would believe how he could catch a bullet at such speed with just his teeth, and we go back in time minutes before the trick, and he sees Jim loading the gun, and before she hands her to a commander, he removes the bullet without anyone taking care of him, and Harry
will have a bullet similar to it in his trumpet, and he will take it out at the time when the army commander fires, and they will adjust the gun, so
that it makes the same sound as the real bullet. Because of
Caesar's admiration for him, he makes him see his army and all the preparations he is making for the war, and Harry informs British intelligence of the information
that he knows day after day. After a while, Harry is invited to the ruling family in Russia, which will be the same period in which the famous monk
Rasputin was, and whoever is known to be the real ruler.
To Russia, his ability to heal the queen's son, and because of his relationship with the queen herself, Harry goes to the queen's palace, and there he will have a box with him, and he asks all members of the royal family to write a wish that they wish to fulfill, and then Harry makes the queen's daughter choose a sheet of wish papers. And it means in Russian that the guard tower is ringing again.
The queen tells him that this is an impossible wish. This is because the bell has not rung for
100 years, because they can't reach him. But Harry tells them
that nothing is impossible. At this time, it appears that Jim is watching Harry. Harry opens the window, and he be the ringer of the bell, and Rasputin sees what is happening, so he spits on Harry in Russian, and Harry does not care about his words, and he asks the daughter of the queen who chose the wish to approach him, and he can
turn the handkerchief in his hand into a rope, and he asks her to pull the rope, and really first the rope is not tightened. They hear the sound of the bell, and they do not believe how this happened, and the child prefers to pull the rope, and the bell rings every time. And Rasputin is shocked and becomes very upset, so Harry asks him and hands him a punch in
his stomach, and Harry still has a great ability to withstand blows in the stomach. And Rasputin's blow remains very strong, but it's good and the show ends.
And Harry informs British intelligence of what happened. So Mr. Chilton asks him about the bell trick, and we go back to the time before the scams, which Harry had planned from the start, and it blooms while changing the wish paper that the queen's daughter chose with another paper that contains the wish of the bell, and then Jim blooms, and he has a sniper rifle, and at the time when the child pulls the rope, Jim hits the bell to make it ring.
Mr. Shelton is impressed by it, and he tells him about the last mission he can do.
They steal a file from the Russian files, and who will know through him their plan. He tells him that the files are in the office safe, and the plan is to rent a theater very close to an office, and at the time Harry is doing a trick on the stage, he goes to steal the file from the safe and then returns again to the theater as if nothing happened, and the plan remains tight, and this is because Harry will have an alibi that he was on the stage all the time in front of the audience, and the trick that he will present to the public remains, and that he comes out of
a court safe. The exact time is 10 minutes, the show begins and the team covers the safe with a curtain. Harry exits from behind the audience.
He goes to the roof of the building and jumps. He doesn't reach the building that has an office, and there he comes down from the balcony and is able to reach the place and sees the safe and is surprised that it is open, so he quickly takes the file, and before he walks, he hears a voice while he is coming from outside with one of the girls of the night, so he gets shocked and quickly enters the inside of the safe, and he notices that the safe is open, so he quickly closes it and continues his evening with the girl, and Harry is locked in a real safe. He doesn't know the locking system of it, nor has he practiced it before, and with little oxygen, and Harry is forced to rely on his experience. He revises all the locking systems that he learned as a child, can reach the age after which the safe will open, and waits
until it comes out, and at this time in the theater, the audience remains afraid and
demands that the theater team open the safe, and she knows that Harry is not there, but she does not know his exact location. She feels that he is cheating on her, and she becomes very upset, and she is also sure that he will forget that today is
their wedding day. The team decides to open the safe, and suddenly they find it full of flowers, and Tess has an answer, and it suddenly blooms in front of them. Harry, and he asks you to read the answer out loud, and you know that we don't forget their marriage feast. And the whole audience covers them, impressed by what they did, and then the
curtain closes and they suffocate. Harry hears that their whole life is a show that
impresses the audience with, and that even their love has turned into commerce for him. People rejoice and make them laugh, and then she leaves him and walks away from this moment, and Harry's
marriage begins to collapse, and this is because of his great love for performances and theater.
That makes him forget anything else over time. The audience becomes smaller because of his repetition of the
same escape shows, and in the same period he can, and who is the competitor to him?
And who can make the audience laugh without speaking, so he thinks of something new that he can present to the audience, and suddenly he sees a cup full of ice. And an idea comes to his mind, and he asks Jim to bring the largest number of ice and fills a basin,
bathing with it, and he keeps sitting in it for a long time, and he keeps exercising himself every now and then. For a day and for a month, his body remains at the temperature of the snow, until the promised day comes, and Harry performs his show, but this time he is outside the stage and stands in a high place, and under it is a hole in the ice, in which the temperature remains negative. In it, his life and all his memories bloom in front of him. He surpasses Harry, and he undoes the hooks and chains, but he does not see the hole of ice from which he will come out, and he keeps searching for it for a long time. Suddenly, his mother blooms in front of him, as if she was guiding him on the way, and he walks after her, reaches the hole, and is able to escape from death. And then he goes back to his mother in her palace and sits with her. He throws a big party in her honor, because of his feeling of being with him and her great love for him at all times. And yet, Harry presents a new offer. He wears a uniform similar to that of the mentally ill,
and let the rest of the team hang him from his leg in a high place, and he is supposed to take off this uniform, and then untie his leg and lower the rope to the ground. And the only way through which he can escape from the insane outfit
is that he takes off his shoulder, meaning that he moves his shoulder muscle from its place and learns how to remove his shoulder from. He puts him in place and takes him back again. And he can pull tricks easily and impress the audience with him. After the stage, she fights with him, and this is because she did not know that he would be in a high place. And she tells him that he kept deceiving her as he deceives people. He tells her that he entertains people's fears and solves them in front of their eyes, so she gets angry and tells him that he won't let him go. And she walks away, and Harry also leaves the house and enters into a relationship with one of his fans, and then he returns home sad and remorseful. He wants to apologize, but he can't find her anywhere, and suddenly she comes and makes him choose between her and that he exposes himself to death again, and he chooses Harry Tess. And he decides that he presents real shows and there are no risks, and he starts his first show with the elephant, which makes him disappear in front of the audience, and after the show, Harry becomes famous more and more to the point that he attends his concerts, and the one who is the author of the character of the famous detective, and in one of Harry's shows, he can break through a wall in front of all people and delude them that he is using his mind only to pass and be amazed at what is happening and wait until the show ends. And he looks at the stage to know what trick he can use, and I can't find any evidence that it's a hoax. But in reality, Jim is still under the stage at the time the curtain closes, and Jim takes off part of
the carpet under the caution, and whoever passes a cat through it, but with his body. The Skinny, and Peggy and his wife backstage, and they express their admiration for me. And they believe that he has miraculous abilities, and she asks Harry that they meet at once, and this is because she is a spiritual medium. Harry thanks her and then tells Arthur that he doesn't have any superpowers, and he is just a magician who deceives the audience, but Arthur does not believe him and says that he is just humble. And he can't help but respond to him and thank him. On the second day, Harry meets one of the British intelligence, and whoever asks him to make a second round to collect more information for them, and Harry will be between that he settles with his wife and takes care of his mother. He said that he heard the words
of intelligence, so the investigator asked what would happen if he refused. The investigator threatens
him and tells him that the British and American public are upset with him. So Harry is forced to agree and bid farewell to his mother, who is sad for him. Separation and have the feeling that she is dying. On the second day, Harry presents
a presentation about a murder that took place in the city, and lets the personality of the victim come forward, as if her soul was inside her, wanting to confess the murderer, and they are annoyed by his presentation, and he walks away. Feeling guilty, Harry suddenly receives a letter from his mother.
And the first thing he reads collapses on the floor, and you hear that his mother died. Harry cancels his tour and returns to bury his mother, and there he asks his brother Dash the last thing their mother said. They say that she said he forgives, and Harry understands that she meant that he forgives
his father. After the funeral, Harry is broken and unable to accept his mother's death. In front of the press, he announces a challenge of $10,000 to any psychic who can let him talk to his mother. More than one fortune teller accepts the challenge, but everyone fails and gets exposed until Harry reaches the most famous spiritual medium in the world, who communicates with the
other world through her deceased brother, and at the time they are sitting, the
lights are turned off and a strange bell rings alone, and then a frightening sound sounds like a voice, and whoever keeps cursing Hari refuses that he makes him communicate with his mother, and then the mediator screams as if she is in pain and asks them to turn on the lights. So Hari stops them and reveals their deception, and learns that the one who rang the bell was the woman's husband, and that the strange voice they heard was the voice of the mediator herself, and those who have the ability to change the voices and then get up and leave them. So the mediator goes to him in his hotel room, herself on him, in exchange for not exposing them, but Hari refuses and throws her out of the room. And one day, he meets Hari for the second time, and she offers him to let him communicate with his mother. Hari agrees and goes somewhere with him, and you can convince him that his mother is the one speaking. Hari cries and cries too, and he goes out happy. And he takes the paper in which the words were written, what his mother said on her tongue, but suddenly he gets the trick. He tells Jim that his mother didn't even speak English and didn't even know a word. And that his mother is impossible to forget his birthday, which was on the same day. Jimmy tries to guide him and asks him not to attack him, or else all people will attack him. And this is because they love a character, but Hari does not care and goes to Mr. and threatens them that he will expose them. On the second day, news about lies and deceit will actually spread, and it will become a scandal in the whole world. Hari continues to perform, while trying to find anyone who can help him. He communicates with his mother, but it is useless, and one day, he will make an offer. His performances. Suddenly, his legs are twisting, and the doctor comes to give her to him, but Hari refuses completely, and this is because he has an offer, and he decides to put stents in order to complete his work. After a while, two painters come to paint it. Suddenly, a strange man enters and hits Hari in the stomach of a powerhouse, because Hari was not ready for the blow. He fell to the ground in pain, but he decides not to show this to anyone in order to complete his offers. Before the performance begins, Hari falls to the ground from exhaustion and is taken to the hospital, and there, the doctors discover an explosion in the appendix and the spread of infection everywhere in his body, which cause gangrene. Unfortunately, there is no treatment for his condition, and he collapses, and his brother Hari comes to say goodbye to him, and she sends him a letter expressing his love for him, and despite his disagreement with his wife, he is sure that he is a person Astana and there is no uniform at all. Hari spends his last days in the hospital thinking about the real reason for his escape all his life. Was he really escaping from death or escaping from life? And Hari discovers that he has spent every day of his life, he defies death, as if he really wanted to die. And he knows that his preoccupation with death has made him unable to live. He talks to his doctor and tells him that his whole life has been based on deception, and that he wished to become a doctor like him, and he does real and useful needs that benefit people. The doctor was very surprised and told him that 1 minute of it was enough to make people happy, and that his presence is in every person, even if it was a short period. They were able to forget their worries and laugh. Hari is captivated by the doctor's words and thanks him, and Hari dies. After understanding that death is real, there is no escape from it.